always a bit of a challenge presenting at lunchtime, so thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. Now, today's session is going to be probably a little bit different to some of the other sessions. It's going to be about how I truly believe that you can be the boss of your future and achieve anything that you want to. And I know it's a bit woo-woo, and being accountants and bookkeepers, we're more, numbers, methodical, but it's a bit of a good change up, I think. My story is probably a little bit different to traditional career path. I started out straight out of high school. I think it was 2 days after I got back from schoolies, I went off and I got a job. I didn't want to go to uni because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I wanted to earn some money. I wanted to buy myself a car. So off I went. I was an administrative assistant and I started doing a bit of MYB. So 17-year-old, and the first job they got me to do was chase down the debtors. Now, anyone who's done that knows that it's quite a difficult task, especially as a 17-year-old, to ring up and wrangle people for money. But it started my passion for, accounting and bookkeeping. And my parents would say it's no surprise. Maths was my best subject. My grandmother was an accountant. My mum was a bookkeeper. So I guess you could say it was kind of in my destiny, but I just didn't see it. So then I started TAFE at night, which, once you have full-time work, it's really hard to go part-time. You're used to that full-time money. But I guess it really allowed me to implement my learnings in my day-to-day, which meant that I progressed probably a little bit quicker than my peers who perhaps did, uni first and then went off to work. Then I went into public practice because that's what you do when you study accounting. That's kind of I think it's kind of like the pinnacle. I don't know, maybe that's just me. Wanted to do my CA and then become a partner and do all those things. And then I guess like a lot of accountants who do public practice, it was a little bit boring. And also I think I had some peers that were doing commercial and they were earning a lot more money than me. So I went, stuff this, I'm going to go and be a commercial accountant, which I did. And I moved up the rank, did some financial accounting, was finance manager. But I kind of felt like, and this is no disrespect to anyone working in commercial, I kind of felt like it was a little bit soulless. I was working for the corporation, not really helping the small business owners like I was, used to. And it just didn't really bring me joy. So a couple of years after that, I went back into public practice. And I think as well in commercial, it's a very male oriented, like I always felt like the token female in the boardroom. It wasn't, here's Natalie, she's our finance manager, she's a chartered accountant with all these years of experience. It was kind of like, oh, here's Natalie, our young female accountant, etc. So I had enough of that and went back into public practice. Why am I telling you all this? Well, for all of this, on the social media, on the highlight reel, it would look like I was kicking goals. As accountants and bookkeepers, we're quite methodical by nature. We like to tick boxes. I was ticking those boxes, finishing my uni, doing my CA, getting married, buying a house. And there was one box that I couldn't tick, and that was starting a family. And I was doing all this in the background because, anyone who's ever been, along a similar trajectory knows that you don't really like to talk about it. So I was dealing with that behind the scenes. We went through, a 10-year IVF journey, which was lonely at times, which, from the outset, once again, people were just thinking, and I had some people say this to me when I told them the story, and they would say, oh, we thought you were career driven. We thought you were just selfish. We thought that you were so focused on your career that you didn't care about having a family. And so what I learnt there is that we can never judge people, right? We never know what's going on behind the scenes. Now, what I learnt through all of this as well, and I'm quite a strong female. And so being a strong female, we like to pretend that we're okay, that we don't need any help, that we can, do things on our own. But I wasn't depressed, but I was on the journey, right? So I decided, going to pull myself out of this. So I went off to the GP and I got the 10 visits you get with a psychologist, right? Went, right, let's go and sort this out. And it was through these sessions, and I think there's quite a stigma with asking for help, and it's okay, right? We all, we can't do everything on our own, right? So throughout this, there was a lot of things that I learned, and a lot of these things can be applied to your everyday life, to your business, and that's why I'm sharing. So lesson 1, it's okay to not be okay and ask for help. Like I said before, you want to control the controllables. There's no point being sad and upset about things that you cannot change. We want to stop the mindset of why me, poor me, and turn it around. So for me now, I'm quite oriented around what's the result. So when a team member comes to me, and I know my practice manager's sitting in the audience and she'll say, you don't always follow that. I try to. Let it out, let them have this is happening, it's really hard, blah, blah. And I go, okay, what's the result? How are we going to fix it? Because there's no point living in that emotional, this is happening, rah, rah, rah. We want to move to the result. And so I apply a lot of that, in my everyday. And, what doesn't kill you definitely makes you stronger. Most people probably look at me and go, oh, you are so confident. You get up on the stage, you do podcasts, you do all of the things. But it actually takes a lot of work to get up and do these things. And I force myself to do the hard things because it does bring me joy. Now, this kind of looks like my old office. I was in a partnership, 2 other partners. They were male partners. They'd always done things the way that they'd been done. And so when I joined them, I became a partner quite quickly. It was 6 months in. I was 28 and I thought, how good is this? I'm going to be a partner at 28. I'm going to earn all this money. It's so cool. I'm going to do all these things. And they didn't really want to listen to me. They just wanted me to be the token female in the room once again. And so as I was dealing with all the IVF and all of that stuff, I was dealing with the male business partners. And it was about 6 years in, and I decided I've had enough, right? Because I was dealing with so much, I was like, okay, I can't have a baby. My business partners are kind of like, you're too progressive, you're too young, you need to earn your stripes, you need to do all these things. And I'm like, what's next? Like, do I want to be an accountant anymore? What do I want to do? It was that time my husband had just started a business as well, and he was loving life. So I thought, let's give it a crack. And so that wasn't my exact office, but you kind of get the gist. And so I started Besides Accounting. Now, this is a photo of me literally about 3 weeks after I left that partnership. And it just so coincided that Xerocon was on. And I went there and I was like, these are my people. I guess you could say I was drinking the Kool-Aid, but I just met, all of you. I met all the progressive accountants, all the accountants that, want to use all the tech, all the accountants who just love what they do. And it really reinforced that the decision that I made was the right one. And over that time, I started Two Sides Accounting from my bedroom. Then I grew it. We moved into the co-working space. My first employee, Megan, who's sitting here filming for me almost 8 years ago now, 8.5, I think. Then we grew quite quick. So we had a larger office. And once again, I was back to ticking those boxes, right? But then I realized as I was ticking those boxes that I wasn't really as fulfilled as I thought I would be. And back in the day when I just worked from home and it was just me, I was kind of having a really good time, but somehow it had turned into this whole beast. We kind of set the place on fire. We fired some clients we didn't want to work with. We kind of regrouped and we went fully remote. We got rid of the office. And part of that decision was also, I guess, feeling like I always had to be in the office and be present for the team. And I guess that's kind of a me problem. It's a manager problem. I kind of felt like I had to walk the walk. I couldn't just, flitter in and out. I had to be there for the team. So going fully remote meant that I didn't have to do that, but I also had the flexibility if I wanted to. As a business owner, if I want to log on at 7 a.m., do a bit of work, and then at 2 o'clock, I want to knock off and, go and get my nails done or something else. I could kind of do that in the background. This is why I'm such a big advocate of building the firm that you want to build. If you want to stay a sole prac because it lets you work with the clients you want to work, a small group of clients, so you can go pick up the kids from school, that's totally fine. Don't be saying I'm only a sole prac, because I hear that quite a lot, right? There's nothing wrong with that. There's sole pracs that just love life, and there's people who run big teams who hate life, who work 70, 80 hours a week. You do you. If you want to have a remote team, do that. If you want to have an office, do that. I think part of building the firm that we think we need to build also comes from the imposter syndrome, right? We all have it. Even I have it. There's always times we think, oh, what am I doing here, right? But I think we all just need to realize we all have it. And like I said before, move on. How can we deal with it, right? I think in females, it's even worse. And I've done a little bit of research to see why this is. And it comes back to the societal norms, right? It's because it's been inbuilt in us for many, many years that, females are somehow not, as good as men. And so how do we fix this? We want to be bold. We want to be brave. We want to be different. We want to do things our way. With AI and all the changes that are coming, the younger generation, the 20-somethings, I have no doubt that they're going to shake things up and do things a totally different way again. So if you're still sitting in this mindset of I'm not enjoying my business, or if you're an employee, I'm not enjoying my role, change it up. What's the worst that can happen? I'm going to go over time, so I'm going to skip through a few things. All right. So being yourself. So this was me back in my old firm about 9 years ago. And as you can see, I was in my suit era. I like to call it, being the accountant that I thought I had to be. The professional version, the version that, respected, because I was corporate. And even today, my mum will say to me, can you please wear a suit and wear some heels? And I say, well, why? And she goes, because you just look so much more professional when you do that. And I'm like, yeah, but mum, I don't feel like, I still do wear heels in my suit occasionally, but it's what you're comfortable in. When we had our office, I used to have clients coming in board shorts, and we thought that was really cool because it just shows that we don't have to dress a certain way to be professional. We can do things however we want to do them, right? Maybe tonight, maybe next week, think about one thing that you can change in your life, in your business. It's going to, make you happier, because there's probably going to be one thing that's niggling in your brain. So if I can ask you to do one call to action, that would be it.